Bell Witch, America's most terrifying haunting. Section 1. The Farm. In the early 1800s, the rolling hills of northern Tennessee were quiet. Small farms stretched across the countryside, and families lived simple lives far from the growing cities of America. Among them was a farmer named John Bell. He had built a successful farm near the Red River, where he lived with his wife Lucy and their children. To their neighbors, the Bells were respected, hardworking, ordinary. Nothing about their lives suggested that history would one day remember their name, but sometime around 1817, something changed. John Bell began noticing strange animals wandering near his fields. One evening, he spotted what appeared to be a large black creature. It stood motionless, watching him from the edge of the trees. When he raised his rifle, the creature disappeared without a sound. Soon after, the family began hearing knocks against the walls of their cabin. At first, they blamed the wind, then animals, but the sounds returned, night after night, louder each time. What began as a few unexplained noises would soon become one of the most terrifying hauntings ever recorded in American history. Section 2. The haunting begins. The strange encounters did not end in the fields. Within days, the disturbances followed the Bell family home. Every night, the silence was broken by sounds that seemed to come from nowhere. Knocking echoed through the cabin walls. Scratching clawed across the wooden logs. Chains appeared to drag across the floor. Yet when the family searched, nothing was there. As the nights passed, the activity became impossible to ignore. The children woke to unseen hands pulling at their blankets. Soft whispers drifted through the darkness, just beyond the reach of the candlelight. Then, the voices began. At first, they were little more than faint murmurs, barely understandable. But with each passing week, they grew louder, clearer, as though something unseen had found its voice. The Bell family soon realized whatever had entered their home was no ordinary presence, and it showed no sign of leaving. Section 3. The Voice in the Darkness. The strange noises were no longer the family's greatest fear, because whatever haunted the Bell farmhouse had begun to speak. At first, the voice was faint, barely more than a whisper drifting through the darkness, but before long, it spoke with startling clarity. It answered questions, called members of the Bell family by name, and seemed to know things no stranger possibly could. The unseen presence laughed, sang old hymns, quoted passages from the Bible, and mocked anyone who questioned its existence. Word of the strange happenings spread quickly across Tennessee. Neighbors, travelers, and curious visitors arrived at the Bell farm, hoping to witness the impossible. Many claimed they left convinced. Some reported hearing the mysterious voice for themselves. Others spoke of footsteps moving through empty rooms, or unseen hands touching them in the darkness. When asked who or what it was, the voice gave a simple answer: "My name is Kate." From that moment forward, the invisible force became known as the Bell Witch. Section 4. The Legend Grows. The strange events at the Bell farmhouse were no longer a private family matter. Word had spread across the surrounding countryside. People came to the farm hoping to hear the mysterious voice for themselves. Some visitors claimed the entity spoke directly to them. Others reported strange noises, unexplained movements, and objects seemingly disturbed by an unseen force. But one visitor would later become one of the most famous names connected to the story. According to the legend, General Andrew Jackson was traveling through Tennessee when he decided to visit the Bell farm. Jackson and his companions arrived expecting to investigate the strange reports surrounding the family, but according to later accounts, something unusual happened before they could even settle in. One of the group's wagons suddenly refused to move. The horses strained against their harnesses, but the wagon remained completely stuck. The men tried everything they could think of. Nothing worked. Then, a mysterious voice was reportedly heard. It mocked the travelers and claimed responsibility for their predicament. The story says that after the strange encounter, Jackson decided it was better to leave. Whether the event actually happened exactly as later storytellers described is impossible to know. There is no reliable contemporary evidence confirming every detail of the famous encounter, but the story continued to spread, and with every retelling, the Bell Witch became more than a local mystery. She became a legend, and for the Bell family, the haunting was far from over. Section 5. The Final Days. By the winter of 1820, the strange events surrounding the Bell family had continued for years, but John Bell's health was failing, according to later accounts. He had become seriously ill and was confined to his bed. Then, a strange vial was reportedly discovered inside the Bell home. The substance inside was dark, and its origin was unknown, according to the legend. The mysterious voice claimed responsibility. It reportedly declared that it had poisoned John Bell and that he would not recover. On December 20th, 1820, John Bell died. He was only 60 years old. The Bell Witch legend says that the entity continued to torment the family even after his death, and that a strange voice was heard during his funeral. But this is where the story becomes difficult to separate from the folklore. There are no surviving contemporary records proving that a supernatural entity poisoned John Bell. The earliest surviving written accounts of the haunting appeared decades after the events themselves. And much of the story familiar to us today comes from later retellings. After John Bell's death, the disturbances eventually faded. The Bell family continued with their lives. Betsy Bell eventually married someone else. And the family gradually moved on from the events that had made their home famous. But the story never disappeared. It passed from generation to generation, growing with every retelling, a mysterious voice. A haunted farmhouse, a family terrorized by an unseen presence, and a man whose death became the darkest chapter of the legend. Whether the Bell family truly encountered something supernatural, whether the events were misunderstood, or whether the story changed as it passed from one storyteller to another, we may never know, more than 2 centuries later. The Bell Witch remains one of America's most enduring haunting legends, and perhaps that is the strangest part of all, because sometimes a mystery doesn't survive because we found the answer. It survives because we never did. If you enjoyed this case file, consider subscribing to the Hollow Signal and leave a like. I appreciate you all and thank you for listening. Every week I investigate true mysteries, unexplained disappearances, paranormal encounters, and the stories that continue to haunt history. If there's a mystery you'd like me to investigate next, leave it in the comments below. Until the next signal, stay safe, stay curious.